Now, I feel I have to be honest about the somewhat conflicted feelings I have regarding my job. I can't in good conscience say that being a Forge Knight was necessarily a good thing. Honourable? Perhaps. Fun? Definitely. But good? I really didn't know about that one. It all came down to one thing, really. No matter how well-intentioned my intentions were, I sure did spend quite a bit of time killing folks. Take today, for example. The glorious voice of John Fogerty was blasting through the air as an accompaniment to the various munitions Skywolf was pouring into this tide of Skarn encroachers, turning them into various flavours of mulched porridge. The drums were blaring, the rockets were detonating, the bodies flying, and I was having a damn good time just pointing and shooting, and occasionally screaming, "It ain't me, it ain't me!" And then the thought occurred to me. Am I a bad person for enjoying this? Good lord, what's my body count at this point? How many of these toe rags have I toe tagged? I mean, I understand the need for the occasional bit of policing action, but was I being too heavy-handed in my responses? I don't like feeling like a bully, even if the assholes deserve it. Was this why Batman refused outright to take another life? Because too much killing can feel burdensome? But what was my other option? Sure, I could build prisons and even staff them with androids to keep the inmates in line, but frankly the very idea was repulsive. I hated that notion to my very core. I already came from a country with too goddamn many prisons. I didn't want to make locking people up America's first interdimensional export. So I guess I'll just keep gunning them down. At least I ain't penning them up. I guess I'd rather take a man's life than his freedom. Even monsters like these Skarn pricks deserve that much consideration. What a world, what a world, what a world. Suddenly, Skywolf was rocked hard after taking a nasty hit from something. Whatever it was, it scored a second hit a few seconds later, before Pete could get her stabilized, sending the gunship spiraling toward the ground. The sensation of impact was not an enjoyable one. "Sir Matthew, are you well?" Pete asked worriedly. "Pard, I'm not going to lie. I have enjoyed softer landings than that," I replied. "Sensors indicate you remain in excellent health. Oh, thank goodness. I apologize for being unable to avoid the magic that was deployed against us." "Not your fault, Pete," I said. "That's on me for being an amateur pilot. It never occurred to me that they'd have a magical heavy hitter strong enough to swat us out of the sky. Lesson learned, never underestimate your prey, even when you have the advantage." "Well, as long as we're learning from our misfortunes, then all is well," Pete said cheerfully. Man, you really couldn't keep this guy down. "Sir Matthew, Skywolf is currently surrounded by the Skarn. They're attempting to find a way inside. How should we respond?" "Is she salvageable?" I asked him. "I'm afraid not, sir. We'll have to rebuild her from scratch." "Damn. I love this boat," I said glumly. "As did I, Sir Matthew. It was a fun afternoon we shared, putting her together." "Yeah," I said. "But you know something, Pete? Skywolf wasn't no angel. She was a Valkyrie. We're not sending our baby girl up to heaven with our tears of sorrow. We're sending this deadly bitch on a final ride to Valhalla in a blaze of glory. Activate the self-destruct sequence." "Activated, sir," Pete said. "Would you like to eject?" "No, Pete, I'd like to stick around and get my toenails painted." That was a joke. Yes, Pete, I'd like to eject. "I knew you were joking," Pete said primly, as he blasted us into the sky seconds ahead of the massive explosion that swiftly consumed hundreds of the Skarn mob beneath us. "Did you really, though?" I asked him, as our parachute deployed. "Yes," Pete said defensively. "Well, alright then," I said, as we landed on the burning terrain. "Pete, do me a solid and call Doughboy out of storage. These boys have got my blood up now. They really do." "Pity for them," Pete said. "It would have been kinder just to let us shoot them." Doughboy was just my little nickname for what Pete designated the Advanced Anti-Personnel Action Armor, but calling it the Quadruple A didn't suit my sensibilities very much. It was a big, mechanized suit of powered armor that looked slightly round on the angles. It also made whoever wore it look like a mean son of a bitch, so I took to calling it the Doughboy. I'd run into some orcs a little while back who thought they could take me while I was suited up in this monster. Things didn't work out too well for them, I'm sad to say. As soon as the suit locked itself into place around me, I got straight to business. Alrighty, Pete, put us in long-range mode. Sync with the drones and get me a lock on whoever it was that shot my baby girl down. I have him, sir. The black-robed figure standing 30 meters northeast of our position. He appears to be channeling another fireball to hurl in our direction. Oh, is he now? I asked Pete, as Doughboy's right arm transformed into a little something I like to call Configuration Bert. Well, let's just see what old Bert has to say about that, why don't we? It turned out, Bert had a lot to say. You don't really notice it when you're up in the air, but up close, people almost look like they're swimming when you catch them full blast with a minigun. Like, there are so many bullets going around them and through them, that they can almost lie on top of them in mid-air before their bodies start falling apart. It's interesting. Just saying. I had Pete and the drones lock in on any other suspicious figures dressed similarly to that wizard, and we cleared them out in no time, leaving only the scum by themselves to deal with. And boy, were these fools still spoiling for a fight. Too bad for them. Doughboy's left arm also had a configuration Bert. Why 2 miniguns, you ask? Because if one gun invites you to her apartment, you're going to have a good time. But if her roommate wants to join as well, then boy, you're gonna have a great time. Brrr, says my left hand. Brrr, says my right hand. You know what? I take back my earlier apprehension about the cost in conscience over the consequences of taking another person's life. Do you know why? Because right now I was in a power suit, dual-wielding 2 miniguns, and chopping up more blue steak than a French sous chef moonlighting at a Benihana's. There are people who'd pay me my weight in gold to stand where I stood right now. Come get some, you son of bitches! I yelled, while the guns tore these evil bastards apart. I got plenty for everyone. Does life get any better than this? I sure hope so. I really feel that I haven't peaked yet. Stop! Roared a fearsome voice. The Skarns ceased their suicidal charges at my position, when a huge figure in black armor approached me, carrying a nasty-looking piece of metal that technically qualified as being a sword, the same way that Shelob counted as being a bug. He approached me without fear, even though I could have lit him up at any moment. When he stood a couple of meters apart from me, he asked, "For what reason do you defend these forest elven mongrels from our wrath?" "Come again?" I said in response. "Do I need a reason to protect anyone being hounded by a bunch of chicken shits who only strike with the safety of numbers on their side?" "So, you're an altruistic fool who meddles in the affairs of others," he said. "Well, considering I got you locked in my sights with 2 chain guns pointed at your ugly face, maybe calling me a fool is the wrong idea, Mr. Tons of Fun." "I fear nothing in this world," he said boldly. "I am Volm, breaker of men, a proud servant of the advocacy." "The advocacy?" I murmured to myself. "Pete, real quick, tell me where I heard that name before." "An organization of mages dedicated to the darkest pursuits of black magic," Pete said warily. "They existed on this world before we lost contact with it. Apparently, they thrived in the centuries since our return. Sir Brian mistook us for members of their group when we first met him and Lady Amanda, as I recall." "Oh, that's right," I said, as the memory of that day returned to me. Hell, the idea of me being one of them spooked Borman so much he attacked me on sight. And now they're responsible for sending this ugly mob after these elves. They seem like some bad hombres to me, Pard. "They must be. Oh dear. Could they also have been the ones sponsoring Lord Vexavish's use of dark magic?" According to Lady Amanda, the spells he was attempting to master were beyond the level of an amateur like him. He had to learn from somewhere, and he was trading his human slaves to them, whoever they were. "Well, how about that?" I growled to myself. Vexephius had been an absolutely psychopathic piece of walking garbage. The worst kind of self-centered monster imaginable. Without remorse, I proudly say that I killed that son of a bitch as slowly as I could, and it was still faster than he deserved. And now this big guy was standing in front of me and declaring he was in with that evil bastard's crowd. Not the smartest Lego in the box, was he? So, you're a servant of the advocacy, eh? I asked Volm.
Not just a servant, he said proudly. You now face the fourth finger of the hand.
I have no idea what that means, I said to him bluntly.
You've never heard of the hand?
He asked me in surprise. Can't say that I have.
You're lying.
Afraid not, Pard.
Then you're ignorant.
Could be.
It matters not. You still inferred in the business of my masters, and for that you shall die, he roared.
Alright then, I said. Then I flipped in the bird. Sadly, he didn't understand the intent behind the gesture.
What are you doing? What does that mean?
Volm asked me. What do you mean, what am I doing? You said you were the fourth finger of the hand, so I'm showing you the middle finger of my hand.
So, you're honoring me as a fellow combatant? You're acknowledging me as your esteemed opponent?
What? I said in irritation. No, you stupid bastard. I'm telling you to go fuck yourself. You want to throw around that you work for a bunch of bushwhacking, raping, slave-trading assholes, and then act like I'm the fool for not knowing about it? You porky little gate-tooth shit dispenser. As far as I'm concerned, you can wipe your ass with a thorny branch, and then sit in a tub of peroxide, you dumbass sister-riding, finger-sniffing, peckerwood fuckwit. Man, I really hope you're smart enough to realize them's fighting words, but I don't think you are. Volm stood there staring at me for damn near 10 seconds, while he processed what I just said to him. Then he roared like a grizzly that just had his balls slapped, and came running at me, hot. Good. Now I'll say this for him, Volm must have been a strong fella to wield that heavy-looking suit of armor, and swing around that ridiculous-looking sword. A fella like him is probably the deadliest sort of opponent a regular man could face in a duel. But I was a trained forge knight, wearing the sort of armor that literally made me stronger than 2 bull elephants combined. I'm being serious too. We ran the tests. So when I say that I caught him under the jaw with an uppercut that the good Lord himself would have applauded, and sent him skidding through the dirt like the world's least wanted hockey puck, you can believe me 100%. That's the church truth right there. My next move was to summon my personal sword, Big Country. It was a ridiculous looking weapon too. It looked closer to a steel wall than an actual sword. This was the kind of melee weapon you swung when you needed to thin out a crowd, or for doing some demolition for a housing renovation. Whatever you needed, Big Country was a tool that got the job done. The job right now was to put this asshole well and truly in his place. Get up, boy, I said to Volm, as I marched towards where he lay with my sword over my shoulder. I know you ain't done yet. Volm proved my words true by scrambling angrily to his feet, sword in hand. Then he roared once more and came charging at me, while I did the same. One of us wasn't walking away from this.